Hi, my name's Simon K. Jones, and you're listening to the audio version of my ongoing serial Tales from the Triverse, and today's story is called Guardians. The Garrison, Brulia, 3208, Bright Sun. Messenger spirits arced across the skies above Brulia, spiralling this way and that to avoid interception, blue and orange and purple creatures the size of birds, flitting between buildings and across rooftops to reach their destinations. In the sun-bleached day, they could be hard to see, pale against the bright, cloudless sky and the rocky structures. Come night, they would be a light display worthy of any festival. This was no festival. It was war. Captain Rexon of the City Guard roared his orders, charging about the garrison's central chamber, speaking with the receivers as they translated and relayed the messages. Reports were pouring in from the outer districts of the city of a rebel force having emerged from the canyons, taking the city protection by surprise and driving across the bridges. There was fighting in the outskirts on the south side of the city, and with each report the size of the attacking force swelled. Hundreds, then thousands of enemy combatants. The scouts had seen nothing. There had been no advance warning. It was an intelligence failure on a colossal scale. Recriminations could come later. His responsibility was to muster an opposing force, to defend the city and push back the insurgent wave. He had expected this for months, as one city-state after another had fallen under the spell of the terrorist network. And it was a network, a sudden coalescing of 100 different groups from across the continent, united in their desire to do harm. Everything was coming unstuck. An attack on Brulia was their boldest move yet, and they'd bypassed many of the city-states on the way. There had been no word from the peak, which suggested they had left the mountain settlement untouched. Brulia was impregnable, despite the surprise attack. No matter the size of the attacking force, Brulia had more. The city guard alone was better trained, better equipped. There was no finer collection of martial wielders on the continent. Factor in the presence of mid-earth troops stationed near the portal in University, complete with their mechanized war machines, and the fight would soon be over. It could be a decisive defeat for the rebels, perhaps even the battle that would end their alliance. And yet... Rexon put distracting thoughts from his mind and focused on the immediate crisis. The war table was being reconfigured to display the latest information from the front, the visualists working hard to keep it up to date. Brulia was represented in 3 dimensions from above, and in miniature scale. A red mass to the south was breaking against the blue of the city guard. What had been a rapid incursion was already slowing, and would soon be repelled from the city. Have we sent a messenger to the neighbouring city-states? He looked for his chief sender, who ran back into the chamber from a well-illuminated outer room. Yes, Captain, birds are away. Good, he bellowed. Guards moved about the room, looking to their own messages and information, relaying orders to individual squads. If the Peak's forces come at them from the south, we'll have them squeezed from both sides. There'll be no escape. As with all wars, it was as much about information as it was boots on the ground and weapons in hand. Perhaps more so. And Rexon had many files in his office on the floor above. Files and files. Gina approached, her cloak pulled tightly around her face, as always. My observers bring word, Captain, she said, moving close so as not to need to raise her voice against the noise of the room. Christian and Lycazra of the Arkehu have been sighted. Princess Darila Baltine is among them. All the ringleaders, then. They were clearly confident in their chances of victory. Unless there was something else at play, something that Brulia's analysts hadn't reckoned with. It wouldn't be the first time that day, after all. Defence of the city is our priority, Rexon said. Protection of civilians. Remember, vengeance is a natural consequence of us doing our jobs properly. It's not the mission. She planted her hands on the war table, knocking a corner of the visualization out of sync. If we cut off the head, the Arkehu will be done. Finished. There's any number of charismatic leaders waiting to step up, Rexon snapped, knowing full well that Gina wanted her own personal reckoning. They'd probably thank us, and we'd turn them into martyrs if we killed them. They're forces we can handle. The leaders require some sensitivity. They must be apprehended, taken into custody. It has to be done right. So they can have their day in court, spout their usual lies. He moved her hands away. if that's what it takes to stop the fighting. A messenger ran up and passed a scroll to Rexon. It was magically sealed, awaiting his signature, so he pressed his thumb into the imprint. The seal broke, and he unfurled the message. "New orders," he said, scanning the text. "From the Chancellor?" "From the very top," Rexon said, feeling his blood cooling in his veins as he read the instructions. He tightened his jaw, stared at the mark of Balteen's house in the university insignia. "Set the lower city aflame." It was a simple enough order, easily executed. He could send instructions out to the guard overlooks that connected the outskirts of the main city, the bridges spanning the chasms between the many mazes of Brulia. Excellent elementalists were already on site, and could create a multi-point conflagration that would envelop the lower city. The city's physiologists would fan the flames with artificial air currents. Frankly, it was a miracle it didn't happen more often after closing time. The orders from the Chancellor's office did not include an evacuation. There would be no escape for the Brulian citizens currently trapped there. Balteen wanted the incursion stopped, no matter the cost. It was one shitty order too many. "Come with me," he said, grabbing Gina by her good arm. She tried to object, but his stare closed her mouth, and physically there was no possibility of resisting his grip. "My office, now." He stormed up the short flight of steps, dragging her with him, and slammed the office door shut behind them. "Captain?" He threw the scroll down onto the desk, then pointed a finger. She picked it up, and her eyes widened as she read it. "What do you think, Gina?" She was nodding as if trying to convince herself. "This would cut them off, prevent any of the ground-bound attackers from reaching the rest of the city. We'd only have to deal with the flyers." She looked up at him, eyes glinting in the lamplight from beneath her hood. "What is our purpose?" "Captain?" "What is our purpose? The city guard, what is it we do?" She paused for thought. The pause was worrying. She should know the answer without hesitation. "Apprehend criminals? Prevent lawlessness." "No!" He banged his fist against the wall, then pointed at her accusingly. "The clue is in the name. We guard the city. That is our purpose." "Yes, but what is the point of protecting the city if in doing so we destroy it?" "It's the lower city," Gina said. "If it saves the rest of Brulia." He kicked at the heavy wooden desk, pain arcing up his calf. The desk didn't budge. "I will not issue an order to murder Brulian citizens." He snatched the scroll from her. "These instructions are immoral." "If they breach the city centre, if they come here, do you think they'll treat us so compassionately? The Akehu rape and murder. They will swarm through Brulia, and there will be nothing left. The lower city's sacrifice may save everyone else." "Is your mind clear on this, Gina?" "My mind." She pulled down her hood, one side of her face evidently paralysed as she spoke. "I was there, Captain. I was there at Tupu. They slaughtered everyone, my entire squad. Dan, Ainley, Tulsa, Konyu, Sergeant Wolfe. Princess Darila tried to kill me. They're all murderers." "And us? What are we, Gina?" "We have to follow orders. This comes from Chancellor Balteen." She was hiding behind authority, something he'd done too many times in his life. 5 years ago you disobeyed orders and helped Lola Stiles escape the city. Princess Darila too. Gina grimaced and looked away. "That was a mistake. You were complicit." Rexon smiled. "I was, and I suspect we are still to discover the full consequences of our actions." He put a hand to a tall drawer in his desk. "Orders are malleable, Gina." Pulling open the drawer, a pile of scrolls burst out, some falling to the floor. "What is this?" "Orders I've chosen to ignore. Political conveniences, off-the-books executions, asset seizures, blackmail." "You've disobeyed orders?" Even half frozen in place as it was, Gina's face betrayed her shock. "Not all of them," Rexon said, pulling a handful of papers from the drawer. "Only the ones I could get away with, or could make it look like one thing happened when something else entirely took place." "You could be arrested for this," she said. Then the realization hit her. "I should arrest you for this." He spread the papers out across the desk. "We all know the city runs on favour and corruption and who you know. It always has. What we do is put some polish on it, a veneer of civility. We make it possible for most people to live their lives in peace. But this?" He swept a hand over the scattered orders. "This is Balteen as king. Baltine wanting to rule over more than merely Brulia. The man's ambition is limitless. He wants the continent. He wants an empire stretching around Palinor. He'd bend the entire Triverse to his will if he could. Gina covered her face with one hand, still holding the latest order. But you're captain of the guard. I'm a city guard. We take our orders from the Chancellor and the University. You're talking about treason. We rule with the fist and the iron gate. That's what we've always done. Can you really say that everyone in the prisons deserves to be there? We're not a soft people like the Earthers. We do justice differently, run our cities in our own way. Guilty means guilty, and we throw away the key. He snatched the scroll from her. That's not the same as this. The Akehu are here. We can decapitate them, end them once and for all. Perhaps she was too far gone, but he had to keep pushing. This is too far. I will not burn half the city for that man. The Akehu are not worth the lives of hundreds of Brulian citizens. And what if they slaughter half the city? Rexon took a breath. She had good sources, he knew. Had doubled down on Spymaster after what happened in Tapu. Gina didn't fight, but she had her ear to the ground, as did he, which meant he knew she was lying to him or to herself. All the information we have received so far suggests that the Akehu are not targeting civilians. They are taking out military and city guard targets precisely, then moving on. You know this, Gina. They took my arm. They took my face. You want me to welcome them with open arms? He shook his head. We can defend ourselves, of course, but our priority is the city and its people. Fury simmered behind her eyes. I could arrest you now. You could. Then why are you telling me? You could have simply ignored the order. Rexon smiled and put a hand on her shoulder. You're far too clever for that. But a line must be drawn, and not in flame. He shoved the papers back into the drawer and slammed it shut. Besides, I was hoping you'd come around to my way of thinking. She grimaced. Why? All I've wanted for the last 4 years is to track them down and wipe them out. He should never have sent them to retrieve Samova. Too late, Rexon had identified that warrant as another fabricated story. He didn't know what Samova had done or had known, but it wasn't what had been written on his wanted poster. You've disobeyed orders before, he said, moving back towards the door. I thought you might again. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. He raised an eyebrow. Was it? Opening the door, the noise of the war room rushing back in, he paused for a moment. What you do next is up to you. If you want to arrest me, do so. If not, we have work to do. Thanks for listening. You can leave a comment, find many more stories, and check out all my other writing over at simonkjones.substack.com.